Guys, and welcome back to episode 94. I almost said 84 for some stupid reason. 94 of the Impact Defense Podcast. Today, we're going to have Michael Mann back on, or as Jada likes to call him, Michael the Man. So,
Well, when you got a last name like that, you got to come up with some kind of nickname.
yeah. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy. All right. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about, or in this interview, I guess, we're going to be talking about like ways to spot a threat. You know, we've talked about that a little bit in the past in the podcast, but, you know, somebody with his level of expertise, I thought he would be a great person to kind of bring on and talk to about that. All right. Before we get into the interview, we need to, you know, have an ad.
Faith.
Freedom.
Cars.
Martial arts.
Coffee.
You can find t-shirts for all this stuff and more. Where can they find that, Kylie?
At faithandfreedom.clothing.
Oh, by the way, if you use the coupon code Impact Defense, you will get 10% off of that.
Ooh. We should better use that then.
What was that voice?
I don't know.
Okay. So to get away from Kylie's voices here, let's go ahead and say faithandfreedom.clothing. All right. So Jada always has a hard time listening to herself in these ads. Okay. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into our interview. All right, guys, and we're going to welcome back Michael Mann to the podcast. We had you on once before. We really, really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that we had with you. And we wanted to bring you back today and talk a little bit about spotting possible threats or predators or anything along those lines.
Yeah, awesome. All right.
All right. For anybody that did not hear the last episode that you were on, could you give just a really quick little introduction of yourself?
Yeah. I have a company called Michael Mann Security Services. You can go to michaelmannsecurityservices.com to see that. We do a lot of training and assessment work, 50% for houses of worship, 50% for large corporations and large like contract security organizations, a lot of training stuff and assessment stuff for them also. Background, just Marine Corps veteran, infantry and fast company, SWAT officer, and actually technically I'm a retired police officer. I was there 12 years, started drawing a pension last year. Then worked for the National Nuclear Security Administration, protecting nuclear weapons facilities for a while, and then got into commercial nuclear security as a director, developing programs. And then I just got into doing what I'm doing now, which is which kind of bled over into what I did for the government world, but executive protection programs for like big ministries, houses of worship, etc. Old school gun sight guy, started in late 1980s when I was in Fast Company and have continued that. So anyway, so design a lot of physical security stuff for people and for facilities.
Yeah. So, and if you have not listened to or watched the podcast with him from earlier, I would highly suggest to go back and catch that one. But today specifically, we want to talk about spotting threats, and I couldn't think of anybody better to bring back on the podcast to talk about that than you. If we are looking, if you're kind of just walking around in your everyday, what kind of things are you looking for if you're trying to kind of look for a threat?
Yeah, so the process, so there's kind of two sides to this, right? There's the individual process of looking for a problem, which we would train like a personal protection or like a bodyguard or EP agent in, or even a citizen. Those are the same. And then there's kind of the facility protection side, right? So I'll kind of try to blend both of them. But the first piece of this is there's a model that everybody needs to understand first. So yeah, the basic, before we get into the threat detection piece, and I'll go over just the basics of that, or we can just talk about just the introduction, is it gets into the mindset and our strategy. And this is for anybody. And there are three elements, and that's number one, it's awareness. Number two, it's avoidance. And then three, last is always defense. And so basically that mindset tells me, number one, if I'm out here walking around I need to be aware of what's happening, not only just in my surroundings, but what's supposed to happen. Two is avoidance. Like if I see something that's not supposed to happen, then especially as a citizen, and like if you're a bodyguard or protection agent, my job is to get my family, myself, or the person I'm protecting away from that. I need to avoid conflict. So I need to, so the awareness piece helps me see it early. And then when I see it, we don't need to run to it. We need to get away from it.
Yeah.
We need to evacuate our family, us, or somebody else we're protecting away. And then the defense piece is always last, especially for the private citizen for a couple of reasons. Number one, because we might not be successful.
Right. Yeah. True.
and so there's a lot of luck in that. Believe it or not, there's skill, but there's a lot of luck in survival sometimes. And two, the legal ramifications, which I know you guys teach the same thing I do.
Yeah.
There's all this legal stuff behind a private citizen defending themselves or someone else. And so that the very first part of that is understanding those three elements. And that's the way that I need to live and think about everything we're doing when we're talking about like dealing with a threat or detecting a threat. So the mindset piece, and it's just called the basic protection model, is all that is. That is the model that I live by. I'm aware, I avoid, I defend, always last.
That's awesome. I like that.
So that's the mindset piece of kind of when we're looking for something. And then I think like spotting threats, it's pretty simple, but it's not, because I learned this in Israel to start with. So they have a very different mindset of this prevention piece and seeing something, and then what they do with it. We think differently of it here. We are very responsive here because we're the only gun culture in the world. We're here because of guns. You go anywhere else in the world, they don't have access to things that we have access to.
True.
And so our mindset here is very, very different because we can have those. But people, because of, for numerous reasons, going to that first, or that, responding, can be very undesirable. And so kind of the next piece of this really is not looking for the threat, but it's the idea of understanding that something bad can happen to you.
Right.
And, and so, there's a lot of people that would rather just think nothing bad is going to happen, or, something we hear a lot, God's going to protect me. Well, if you're in his will, he will, but not in the way exactly that we think of protection. Right. And so the second piece of this, whether it's an individual or it's a facility, is like on the facility side, it's just a threat assessment. For the individual, it's, we're going to try to stay away from this idea that nothing's going to happen to us. And this is the things I probably need to worry about based on my experience, based on what's happened to people I know, based on what I watch on the news, based on what's happening in my neighborhood or the places that I go every day. So you've got your basic protection model. And then the second piece of that is just, understanding and admitting to yourself, bad things can happen as soon as I walk out of the door.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to get people out of the mindset of thinking that, nothing, that kind of stuff happens to other people. It's not.
Stuff happens in movies and TV shows. It's never going to happen to me.
And then you sit there and you're like, really? Because this situation happened within 5 miles of where you live. It could happen to you. That was in your home neighborhood.
Yep. And then I know you guys teach the same thing, that, the avoidance piece is also really, it's very important because, and the understanding piece, because there's nobody else. It's just you, right?
Right.
If you make the decision to call and have someone else come to help you, number one, it's going to take a long time maybe for them to show up. And number two, there's very little capability for them to protect you anyway.
Right. Right. By the time if you make a call, they said the national average is right around 10 minutes to actually get police on scene. And we always tell everybody, because it's really simple, because if you call 911, there's an average of 9 to 11 minutes.
Yep. At Nashville, that response time's about in Middle Tennessee, it's like 19 minutes.
Really?
So now that's if they show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Middle Tennessee, especially if you're in Davidson County and Nashville, another reason why I live about 40 minutes outside of Nashville, so where it's quiet, it's about 19 minutes for somebody to show up if they show up.
Okay. So
you're in what county?
I'm in Marshall County now. So I live in a little town called Chapel Hill, a little farming community that's about 35 miles south of Nashville.
Oh, okay. And Nashville. So is Nashville in Davidson County?
Nashville's Davidson County. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're Davidson County, North Carolina. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
that's why you said Davidson County. Was like, wait a second.
Yeah. 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 Nashville, Metro Nashville is Davidson County. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. That threw me for a loop for a second.
Okay, so how does your spotting a threat and like threat assessment work differently according to corporation or
Individuals.
well, he does a lot with churches, so that wouldn't be
Oh, okay. The
That wouldn't
corporations or churches.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So facility protection versus like the individual. Is that what you're
Yeah,
like that?
sure.
So yeah. So if I do a threat assessment for a church, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a survey, and part of that survey would be, I'm going to ask the questions. What happened here before? What happens nationally at churches in general? What are some of the threats? What are they worried about? And so I'd gather that information, put that in a document for a church or a facility, and then we would develop a threat spectrum from there based on intent, capability, and frequency of something happening. For the individual, you're going to get into like, what do you do for a living? Do you have a social media presence? What type of neighborhood do you live in? What's the crime look like in the area that you live and work in every day? What's happened to you in the past? So those are things that I would look at for an individual to say, look, here are the risk factors. Here's the things that have happened, or here's the indications I've picked up. What did that intent and capability of that person that may potentially could have been threatening look like, and what's that frequency? So that's the way we would look at it for a person. So again, where do you live? What's your neighborhood look like? What are you involved with every day? There's certain, if you're involved in some sort of certain vocation that people don't like, that can bring a specific risk or certain risk to you. So, and then for the normal citizen, like for just, people that are, they work at Home Depot or whatever every day and they go to work, a big part of that's just going to be like, what's the environment look like that you live and work in every day? Like, what does that risk look like? So that's the difference between the two.
Gotcha. So if we're talking about just a person going around day to day,
yep.
Then what kind of things? First off, I would just want to say that I love the fact that you include like social media presence and stuff like that. What's your social media look like and stuff like that? Because that's something we try to get people to think about all the time. Because people just don't think they go out there, they make stupid comments, or they put this stuff out that just really makes certain groups of people really mad. And I try to get to people, say, listen, sometimes that kind of stuff bleeds over into your real life. It's not just somebody on the other side of the world or the other side of the country that you might be making mad. It might be somebody that you are in your own county or city that you're making mad.
And then you look at their personal pages and the personal information that they've shared over here. Like anybody that you've made mad on here, or just anybody looking to hurt someone, can follow you based on just what you have posted. It's like they will know exactly where you are. They know your routines. They know where you work. They know where your kids go to school. It's like, and you've given them all of that information and then gone and made some people mad. Like that's terrible.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like you might as well go pick a fight with somebody and be like, okay, this is where I live. See you later.
Yeah, that leads into like what you guys are asking, like what am I looking for?
Yeah.
And so so what you're talking about, your pattern, that's the next piece of this, right? So how do I spot the threat? Well, it's not, so don't look for the threat. That's kind of the mistake, because actually if I'm looking for a threat, I'm going to find one, but you're really not going to find it. Like like in behavior detection, there's a really high false alarm rate and a low true detection rate. So there's a validation process to it. But so the first step in that is what you guys are getting into. Like, so human beings in general create patterns, and we do those for two reasons. One, because we're lazy inherently.
That's true.
And two, there's comfort in a pattern. There's comfort in, this is what I do every day. So that the way to really see the problem, don't go looking for the problem. The Israelis call it like separating the hay, the needle from the hay. Like if I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, I'm never going to find that.
Right.
And that's because in the inertia of every day, of all the stuff that we're involved with, if I start looking for just like like something I read on the internet to say like, oh, if a person does this, this is what this is indicative of, right? So if
Right.
I'm looking for that, I'm going to find it. And then that's
Mm.
probably not what it's going to be because we're all weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I told you guys, if you follow me last time, if you follow me around for a day, you wouldn't want to talk to me. You'd be like, what is he doing? Right. So, all of us, we would be,
Yeah.
people would say, so the first part of that is in your pattern, what's supposed to happen and what's not. Like if I don't drink coffee, and if I did, it wouldn't be Starbucks, but I have been to a Starbucks to buy tea or whatever before.
Yeah.
So if you were to show up at the Starbucks, the closest Starbucks to you at 6 a.m., and you did that for a week and you watched, here's what you would probably see. You would probably see, 80% of the same cars coming through the drive-through every morning.
Mhm.
You would see the same employees showing up at 5:45 to open the business. You would see them do the same thing every day before they unlock the doors. You would see the same people come in at 6:15, right? So they don't go through the drive-through. They want the personal touch of going inside. That is a pattern of what is supposed to happen in that environment because you've done an assessment or you've analyzed that for a frequency or a specific piece of time, like
Right.
you've done like a snapshot in time of that, right? So what's supposed to happen every day at 6 o'clock, 6:15, 5:45, whatever. When you're in that environment and something happens that's not supposed to, like you see somebody you normally don't see, you see behavior you normally don't see, you see them not unlock the door on time, or you see them not set things out, and you see other behavior, that tells you something now is unusual.
Right.
This is the avoidance piece, right?
Mhm.
So I was aware of what was supposed to happen. And now in this environment where every day I know this is supposed to happen, something different is occurring. This is where we start to avoid, because I don't know if it's a threat. So we're going like from condition yellow, right? I think we talked about the color code last time.
Right.
I'm in yellow all the time because the first part of the protection model is aware.
Right.
Now what happens, I'm going into orange. Something specific has told me that something's occurred that's not supposed to happen. And here comes the avoidance piece as a citizen. Okay, I'm just going to go back to my car. I'm going to get in it. I'm going to drive away. And maybe I just need to call the police and say, something's not right at Starbucks today.
Yeah.
That's the first step of finding a threat.
Right.
In some worlds, we call it a pattern analysis. So like in churches, I'll go in and I'll say, look, the first step of training for you guys is, number one, you need a threat assessment. And number two is you need to go out and you need to do a pattern assessment of what happens on Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever night you guys are meeting. So don't look for what, the police tell you an active shooter looks like, or some other security consultant. You see air fingers there, right?
Yeah.
That tells you what this looks like. That's not the first step in this thing. The first step is understanding what's supposed to happen. Like,
Yeah.
what does my protected environment look like?
I like that. That is really, and I've heard that to an extent before, but it is a bit different, but it's very true, because there's a lot of people out there that love to say, well, if you see somebody doing this and this and this, that's somebody you got to watch. And yeah, like you said, it may just be that they're just an odd person. That happens quite often, but like, I'm also kind of hung up on the idea you don't drink coffee. Like,
I was thinking about that.
No. You're in the Marine Corps. You're a police officer. You don't drink, security. I don't drink. No, I don't like the taste of it. So like
Oh,
I'd have to dump 200 calories of stuff in it, right, to make it taste better. And so that's just not my thing. So, yeah.
So we are, and it's talked about quite a bit on the podcast. We all three have coffee addictions.
Yeah.
But we
So-
work with children every day. So
That's going to be the excuse. And I will take it any way I can get it. I don't care if it's straight black or if it's like in ice cream. I don't care if it's coffee tasting. I love it. So
yeah. For whatever reason, I've never been a coffee drinker. So I like tea. I worked for a
Yeah.
British company for a while, and they taught me how to drink tea. So
oh yeah, oh okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, but the idea of watching those patterns seems a lot more realistic in a lot of ways. Looking at the things that you normally see on just an everyday kind of thing, and then when you see those things that are very different in those moments, that's the times that you need to kind of alert on.
And like we know, because we see when we're just running this business, the people who come in and out throughout the day, we're so familiar with the everyday patterns in this facility that whenever something is slightly off, it's immediately noticeable to us. because we're here every day. We know what's normal, we know what's not. So anytime we've had a situation where someone comes in, they're acting just different from the normal pattern, or they come and they sit and they like watch the kids' class instead of just filling out their paperwork, we're immediately noticing that. But the parents around who aren't here as much, they just come for their child's class like once a week or so. They don't notice it. They don't see it. And so that just goes with the pattern recognition of you have to know the pattern of the place you're in to be able to accurately assess if there is a threat.
Yep. And that's, if you listen, so anytime there's like an active shooter event, right? And you listen to people that survived, they got away, whatever, you're always going to hear very similar stories. And those stories sound like, well, I heard a noise and I didn't think it was like it was supposed to happen, but I didn't know. I couldn't identify with it. Or, gosh, 2 weeks ago, that person I saw that person doing this and I didn't understand what it was. And I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want to cause a problem. Right. So in every attack, there's all these indications, there's all these indicators, and people actually see them. They just don't know what to do with it. I spoke at the Faith-Based Security Network, their national conference a couple of weeks ago out in Missouri. And they had some speakers that had engaged, like Jack Wilson was one guy that shot the church shooter back in 19, remember? Yep. So he spoke, and I spoke on this behavior detection and how we use it in ministries and why it fits in with the church. He's up there speaking, he said some things. I didn't ask any questions. That was, I'm not shaming or knocking anybody, but they, because they didn't understand what those indications were. And they dealt with that guy, according to him, for like 7 years. They knew that adversary. They knew he was mentally ill. They had all these negative pieces of contacts with him. They knew it was a problem. And that day, all these behavioral and contextual indicators were screaming. They just didn't know what to do with it. So they allow him in the protected space, and then they were forced to respond. But a couple of things that I heard him say was like, they knew this person. They knew their environment. They just didn't, and what he was saying was, well, the reason why we let him in is we really didn't know what to do. This was something that was, we weren't sure, but these indicators were present. And that's with every attack. I don't care if it's if it's someone that, a home invasion, active shooter, sexual predator. There's all these behaviors, these behavioral and contextual indicators that are observed, but because the victims or the victim or victims don't understand the pattern, like what happens is it's perceptual blindness. Right. Like they don't see it. Like even though they do, they don't. Like, the veil's there, and all you got to do is lift it up. But because they don't understand, or maybe they don't care to understand the pattern, it happens. Yeah. And then after after the event, they go, gosh, I did see that. I saw that, and I should have known, right? I should have known. I should have reported that. Yeah, that is, yeah. So that's this, because patterns in life breed complacency. They do. Yeah. And it's all a mind game. Defense, 95% of defense is all this and just understanding. Right? And so, you talked about, you guys understand what the parents are supposed to do. Like when you guys are doing paperwork when you're there, that's, same thing, right? So like executive protection agents, we have to do snapshot threat assessments for them. They're going to show up and do an advance of a place they've probably never seen before. So like, they kind of have to speed through this process and try to determine what the pattern is going to be when they take that protected individual on site. But it's the same process. They're just doing it a lot quicker, right? They're just, and some of their work is guesswork, right? Yeah. But for them, they've got people you've got people in concentric rings, and you've got people there very specifically watching. Whereas a citizen, a lot of times we're just by ourselves. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yep. Yeah, we actually that was an actual situation that she was describing right there that we had happened. So we had to actually force a guy to leave our facility one day because basically he just wanted to come in and sit down and refused to leave until he could talk to me. But all he was doing was sitting there watching the small kids. And
yeah, he even came downstairs and did a full scan of the floor. That was when I knew something was off.
Yeah, hypervigilance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 types of people that are hypervigilant: predators, police officers, and protectors, right? So what was he, right? Or what was the indication that somebody he might have been, right? Mm-hmm. But he could have just been an odd dude.
Yeah, I know, and that's something, and that's something that gets me too. Is we were talking about that. We don't know. I mean, he was just odd or what, but yeah, but we had
sure
to.
he was on the influence of something though.
Yeah, it's very possible because we found out later he'd been arrested for like drug charges and different things along the ways.
Yeah.
So we had to, but we ended up having to kind of get him to go ahead and leave, and yeah, it was an interesting situation. We had a couple parents that were kind of like really paying attention to what was going on, and
Oh,
It's like they may not have fully noticed the guy, but when they saw our behaviors change, it was different. You know,
Right.
like they noticed the difference in us, but they didn't notice the odd guy until we had a different response.
Right.
So like once they see like me come upstairs and sit beside the guy and try to like politely suggest that he leave, you know, they're like, well, that's not normal.
Yep. And you know, for like oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. We actually had one person who has actually been in one of our seminars before, like block basically the doorway to get downstairs.
Yeah, she sat in between we have an upstairs and a downstairs, and the downstairs is where our floor is. That's where we are now.
And when they say
she
upstairs
set
and
herself
downstairs,
in the chair right next to the door and would stand up and kind of almost block the view watching her kids to see if he would try to look around her to see the floor, which he actually did do. He was like visibly not happy when he couldn't see the floor anymore.
Right.
And got more aggressive. And so that was interesting. She's very cool. We love her. But yeah, it was interesting to see that happen.
And you know, that's the difference, like in this behavior threat detection. So if you're an executive protection agent, or like what I've trained church security volunteers to do with a citizen, really the big part of this is I'm aware of what's supposed to happen, what's not. I'll see something, I'm just going to walk away, right? Well, in the church environment, another big piece of the training for this is how to conduct that security interview. When I do see that person, and I start to see these indications, so that's not supposed to happen. You know, I'm aware that's not supposed to happen. I'm seeing some nonverbal that's very strange. Now I'm going to go up and speak to that person. It takes like 5-10 seconds at the most. You got to go through that process, but it's like, and you guys could do that there, but a citizen, really, we're not going to do that. If I go to Starbucks, right, and I see something unusual that could be indicative of like a robbery or some other criminal behavior, I'm not going to go up and have an interview with a person that's acting weird, right? Start asking questions.
Right.
I'm getting out of there, right? So for the citizen piece of this, it is, hey, I see this thing. I'm going to avoid it. Let me get out of here. I'll go get coffee somewhere else. But again, for the protection professional like you guys, you've got a facility there, a church protector, an executive protection agent. Now there's another step to this. So once I've identified maybe, you know, the pathway to violence, I've identified some nonverbal behavior that's not right, and this pattern is all messed up. Now, because they're not attacking, because most of the time when they're doing this, they're not there for attack execution. They're there just trying to gather information. I'm going to go up and have a conversation with this person, and this is what that interview needs to look like. For the church, it's different. For the executive protection agent, it's different. You know, for the corporate security guy, the contract guard, it's a little bit different. But the citizen in general, we see it, man, just get out of there, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about the coffee. Go get gas somewhere else, right? If it's at Publix or whatever, go to Kroger. Get out of there, call the police, let somebody else handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's funny. Everybody who understands actual violence and understands these things, you know, all the experts in the fields that I talk to and that we've had on the podcast says the same thing. You know, if you don't have to be there, leave. There is no, you know, honor in staying in a situation like that, really. And that's kind of, yeah, that's where I fall. It's like if I'm there, and especially if I've got my wife and child or somebody else there with me, I'm getting them out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah. Unless I'm a security professional police officer, I don't need to stand there. I don't need to talk to the person. I don't need to validate what it is I'm seeing. I don't need to try to de-escalate the situation, which is all part of a security interview, trying to determine and validate whether or not this is a threat. I don't have time to do that as a citizen. I see it, leave, go do something else. Call somebody, you know, call the guy that's making $19 an hour to come out there and who's miserable to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, the guy in the uniform. Seriously, that is what the police are for.
Yeah.
To respond to what potentially may be a crime. And if that's exactly what, you know, if they have probable cause or a warrant, right, then they have that ability to make that arrest or detain and then put that person through the system.
Yeah.
But, you know, so call them. That's the purpose, right? It's not for protection. protect yourself, get out of there. You see these things, then just leave. And not specifically the threat. Man, I can give you a list of indicators, and you guys could go out today and you're going to find those indicators at Home Depot, at Lowe's, wherever, right? But that's not what they're doing. It's just, it's based on our experiences, sometimes our prejudice, right? Just depends on, it's just the way we are as human beings. Right?
Yeah, very true. All right. Well, we're probably needing to wrap this up a bit.
All right.
I think we asked you this question the last time you were on, but we ask every time. But if we didn't, then she's going to ask it anyway because she likes to ask this question.
Yeah.
What myth about self-defense that you would just completely like to bust?
Oh, what myth about self-defense? Yeah, I don't know if I said this last time or not, but guns don't protect. I think that's
oh gosh.
Yeah, guns do not protect. Guns are a tool of response. You need to have them. It's your right to have them, right? You may have to use it to defend yourself because you can't avoid or you can't escape, but guns do not protect facilities and don't protect people. Situational awareness is much more important than the gun. So that's the myth. Guns don't protect people or facilities. They're a tool.
You did not mention that last time, and I love the fact that you said that because we try to get that message across a lot.
Yeah.
And we do gun reviews. I teach concealed carry.
One of the first things we say in concealed carry is that if you're here because you think you can get a gun and be safe for the rest of your life, you don't need to be here.
Yeah,
you're in the wrong place, right?
Yeah. And so I love the fact that that's what you said there.
We constantly get comments on, oh, well, if that happens, I'm just going to shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Those aggravate me a little.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's like I just love the comments of like people hearing about someone having a gun like drawn on them and like someone going for robbery. It's like, oh, if someone does that, I'm just gonna that's why I carry, I'm over here going. So you're gonna carry when someone is already so you're gonna try to pull your gun when someone is already pointing a gun at you to rob you.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
How does 2 + 2 does not equal 3.
Yeah. Yep. Action always beats reaction.
Exactly.
Right? Always.
Exactly.
Yep. So yeah, that's the biggest myth. That's the myth that I like to bust. And I say that in every class because usually in a church environment or facility environment, the first thing I teach is behavior and threat detection. And so, I say, listen, I'm a gun guy, right? I've always got 2 on me. There's one in the car. I'm ready to go. But look, I'm the first one out of there.
Yeah.
In the safety brief and training, when I'm talking about, all right, guys, if there's a medical emergency, here's where the AED is, here's where the nearest exits are. And if we got to leave, I'm the first one out. You just need to follow me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first one out of here in an emergency. So anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for coming back on the podcast. To be honest with you, I'd like to keep your contact information because I'd like to have you back on again. We always enjoy talking to you. Because we can definitely come up with reasons to talk to you again because we enjoy having you on.
Well, it's been a great discussion. We covered a lot of great topics and loved your insight. Thank you for coming back.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure we'll see you later.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Okay. So like last time, I thoroughly enjoyed having him on.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, you really see his experience in this kind of stuff, I think. And, so the idea of instead of looking at a very particular set of behaviors, looking at patterns seems a little easier in respect, but also probably not as easy to explain.
And then you also still have the problem of if you are in a location where you don't know the patterns, it is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, because you could go to some town somewhere and go like, oh, this is really weird, but actually it's completely normal for that particular town. Mm-hmm. So really quick before we head out, I am going to tell you just really fast about this new, speaking of guns, he was talking a little bit about guns there at the end, and where guns are not the answer, but guns are a tool. I do have a new belt that is probably one of the most comfortable concealed carry belts I have ever used. But anyway, it's probably one of the most comfortable concealed carry belts I have ever used as far as for keeping the gun where it needs to be. And that is a We the People tactical belt. And you can actually pick that up by going through our link, impactgear.live/We the People. So if you go through there, they've got holsters, they've got t-shirts. Jay, actually, don't you have a new t-shirt from We the People?
I do. It says peace, love, and hollow points. Makes me happy.
You might want to say that again because you were way off of it.
Okay. Yes, I do. It says peace, love, and hollow points, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah, they have some very interesting shirts. I think I've got one. I know I have one. It's a great 4th of July shirt. It's got George Washington on there, and it says "Too cool for tyrannical rule." But aside from that, I actually do have a couple of their holsters as well. I'm definitely wearing that on July 4th.
You need a pair of white dad shoes to go with the shirt.
Yeah, probably not. But anyway,
Hawaiian shirt overlay.
I do have some of their holsters as well. Like 2 of their holsters, I think. I like their holsters. Their holsters are really good. For me, it's Alien Gear and We the People are probably my 2 favorite brands of holsters. But the belt, man, that belt I just started wearing yesterday. And I am really shocked at how well that belt like really kind of keeps that gun in place. So anyway, I talked about that more than I meant to. www.impactgear.live/We the People. Okay, check that out over there. All right. So I think we are going to finish off episode 94. Do not forget a couple of things. If you really want to help us out, you can go down to scroll to the very bottom and
Help fund our coffee.
You can help fund our coffee habit. Michael Mann may not be a big fan of coffee, but we definitely are.
Yes, we definitely are.
You can help us out at $4.99 a month. And like we said before, if we only have 12 people to do that, that would mean that we get a coffee from our local coffee house for every single episode that we record in a month.
Do we have a listen from South Dakota yet?
No, I looked at that yesterday. We do not. So unless the analytics are a little slow to come in, we still don't have a listener from South Dakota yet.
You North Dakota people, tell your South Dakota cousins to listen to us.
Yell it over the borderline.
Or, maybe they could just drive down into South Dakota and listen to it while they're there. That would also work.
Does that work, or would it have to be like something like an IP address registered to South Dakota?
Yeah, but if you drive down there and listen to it, and download it on your phone. Anyway, forget all that. Just get somebody in South Dakota to listen to the podcast before Jada has a conniption.
She still thinks that South Dakota doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No, South Dakota exists.
She just don't think anybody lives there.
People visit South Dakota. People have moved here from South Dakota. But it's deserted now.
All right. So anyway, if you know somebody in South Dakota, tell them please listen to our podcast so Jada doesn't have a cow before our 100th episode. Remember, we are having that review drive. So, we're trying to get new reviews. So Kylie is not begging for reviews constantly. So would you like to tell them about that really quick?
If you are enjoying this podcast, go over to Apple Podcast or any of your podcasting thingies. Don't they have
podcast catchers?
Or wherever you, stream your
But not every one of them allows a written review. That's the thing.
Okay. So what should I say?
Or anywhere where you can leave a written review for the podcast.
Or anywhere where you can write a written review for the podcast.
But especially Apple Podcasts. If you can.
Especially Apple Podcasts.
Okay. So anyway, write a review, screenshot that, send it to Brian, BRIAN, at impactdefense.online. And you'll be entered for a drawing on episode 101, where we will be drawing for a $250 Amazon gift card that Kylie is purchasing.
Apparently me.
Yeah, that Kylie will be purchasing for the winner, and we'll be announcing you on episode 101.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Stay safe.
See
Stay
ya.
alert. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.